I hosted Thanksgiving for my friends and somehow, everything went wrong. This year, I decided to host Thanksgiving for my friends. For years, I had heard about the epic family feasts that some of my friends had, but I didn't want to sit back and just hear the stories anymore. I wanted to create my own. I imagined a cozy evening with my closest friends, stuffed turkey, mashed potatoes, cranberry sauce, and pumpkin pie, everything that makes Thanksgiving the holiday it is. It was going to be a simple gathering with no stress, just fun, food, and laughter. The problem was, I had never cooked a turkey before. In fact, I had barely cooked anything that wasn't microwaved or ordered from takeout. But Thanksgiving? That was something I could handle. My mom had sent me recipes, and I watched a few cooking videos on YouTube, all of which made me feel confident. I knew it wouldn't be perfect, but it would be enough for my friends to enjoy. What could possibly go wrong? Well, let me tell you, everything. I spent a whole week shopping for ingredients, and my apartment was soon filled with bags and bags of food. It looked like I was preparing for a small army, but hey, Thanksgiving is about leftovers, right? I had the big picture in mind: turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, sweet potatoes, green beans, gravy, rolls, and, of course, desserts, because what's Thanksgiving without dessert? The day before Thanksgiving, I woke up early to begin cooking. I started with the turkey. I had watched a dozen videos showing how to prep and cook the perfect turkey, and I was ready. I seasoned it, stuffed it, and got it in the oven. But of course, that's when I made my first big mistake. I didn't check if the turkey was fully thawed. I was already so deep in my holiday mindset that I didn't realize this crucial step. About 2 hours into the roasting process, I noticed a faint smell of something burning. Panicked, I opened the oven to find the turkey half-cooked and the edges already crispy. I immediately called my mom, who, in her calm way, reminded me that the turkey needed to be fully thawed before cooking. I stared at the burnt turkey in horror, feeling the weight of my mistake. My friends were coming over in a few hours, and the only thing that was supposed to be the centerpiece of the evening was turning into a disaster. I hosted Thanksgiving for my friends and somehow, everything went wrong. Part 2. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the turkey, my mind racing. I had no idea what to do. It was supposed to be the star of the show, but here it was, burnt and undercooked at the same time. I checked the time, there was just about 3 hours before my friends would start showing up. I could already picture their faces when they walked in and saw the sad, uncooked turkey on the counter. In a panic, I called my best friend, Sarah, who had been cooking Thanksgiving dinner for years. "Sarah, I messed up the turkey," I said, practically in tears. She was calm as always. "Okay, no worries. Don't panic. First, turn off the oven. Let's see what we're working with." I pulled the turkey out and showed her what I had to work with: a turkey with an almost blackened skin but still partially raw on the inside. It looked like something out of a horror movie. Sarah sighed and said, "Okay, let's try to salvage this. Put it back in the oven at a lower temperature. If we can't fix it, you can always cut it up into pieces and bake it that way." As I followed her instructions, I had a brief moment of clarity. I'd always prided myself on being a go-with-the-flow kind of person, but this Thanksgiving was pushing my limits. I had a million things left to do: mashed potatoes, green beans, gravy, and no time to deal with a disaster of this magnitude. But I had no choice but to push forward. So, while the turkey slowly cooked, or rather, continued its miserable journey in the oven, I got to work on the other dishes. First, the mashed potatoes. They were supposed to be easy, right? Well, I boiled them, but then I forgot to drain the water before mashing them. So, I ended up with a soggy mess. I panicked again, grabbed a potato masher, and tried to salvage them. After a few minutes of frantic mashing and a sprinkle of cheese, I managed to make them edible, at least. Next, the green beans. These were easy, or so I thought. But in my rush, I burnt them. Yes, you read that right. Burnt green beans. How does that even happen? By this point, I could hear the sounds of my friends arriving downstairs. They were likely already gathering in the living room, asking about the food. I could hear them laughing, but I knew deep down I wasn't going to impress them with my cooking skills this year. I had no choice but to carry on and hope for the best. At least I had pie. How hard could pie be? I hosted Thanksgiving for my friends and somehow, everything went wrong. Part 3. By the time my friends were all gathered in the living room, I was frantically trying to salvage what I could. The turkey, still in the oven, was only half-cooked, and the mashed potatoes had transformed into a soggy mess. The green beans? Burnt beyond recognition. I could already hear them laughing, and not in a good way. The only thing that looked like it might save me was the pie. I had spent hours making a pumpkin pie from scratch, following my grandmother's recipe, and it was the one thing that seemed to be turning out okay. I opened the oven and pulled it out carefully, and to my relief, it looked beautiful golden crust, the perfect filling. If nothing else, at least I could serve them dessert. Everything good in there? Sarah called from the other room, her voice dripping with curiosity. I took a deep breath. Yeah. It's fine. Everything's great. We're all set. She wasn't convinced, but there was no time to explain. I quickly set the pie on the counter, hopeful that my one success wouldn't be overshadowed by the disaster in the kitchen. I still had to finish the turkey and salvage the rest of the meal. I checked the turkey again. It was, as expected, still raw in places. In a panic, I set it back in the oven at a lower temperature, hoping it would cook evenly. Meanwhile, I tried to salvage the mashed potatoes. They were a soggy mess, but with some creative mashing and a bit of cheese, I was able to make them edible. The green beans, however, were beyond repair. At this point, I just decided to leave them off the table entirely. The clock was ticking, and the doorbell rang. My friends were arriving. I quickly arranged the turkey slices on a platter, trying to make them look somewhat appetizing. When I set the food on the table, Sarah took one look at the mashed potatoes and said, "Well, these are special." I laughed, shrugging. Not exactly what I planned, but they'll do. My friends dug in, and honestly, the meal wasn't as terrible as I'd imagined. The turkey was dry, the potatoes were a bit odd, and the green beans were absent, but everyone was too busy laughing to care. And then, of course, there was the pie, perfectly baked and delicious. At the end of the night, we agreed this was the most memorable Thanksgiving we'd had. Sure, it wasn't the picture-perfect meal I'd imagined, but it was filled with laughter, love, and memories. And next year? I promised myself I'd at least know how to defrost a turkey properly. I hosted Thanksgiving for my friends and somehow, everything went wrong. Part 4. As the night went on, we all sat around the table, still laughing at the series of mishaps that had led us to this chaotic yet somehow wonderful Thanksgiving. We shared stories about past holidays, both good and bad, realizing that none of us had ever had a perfect holiday meal. In fact, most of our best memories seem to come from the times when things went wrong. Remember the time you burnt your mom's lasagna, Sarah? My friend Emma asked between bites of turkey, her eyes twinkling. Sarah, who was usually known for her culinary expertise, groaned dramatically. Please don't remind me. That lasagna was supposed to be my crowning achievement. Instead, I created charcoal, Sarah said, rolling her eyes. But at least no one was expecting perfection then. We all laughed, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. There was something comforting about knowing that even the best cooks had their moments of disaster. Maybe it wasn't the turkey that made Thanksgiving memorable, maybe it was the shared moments, the laughter, and the way everyone came together, regardless of the culinary mess in front of them. I think we should do this again next year, I said, looking around at the group. Everyone nodded, and Sarah raised her glass in a mock toast. Next year, we'll order pizza and pretend we cooked, she joked. Or we could just agree to make a frozen turkey and set it out as a joke, I added, and we all burst into laughter again. I reflected on how this Thanksgiving, despite all the challenges, had been exactly what I needed. We had all come together, not because the meal was perfect, but because we valued each other's company. It wasn't about the mistakes we'd made or the food that didn't turn out, it was about the memories we had created. The night eventually wound down, with everyone lounging on the couch, feeling full and content. My friends helped clean up, and we agreed that we'd make this a yearly tradition, no matter what disasters might come our way. As I lay in bed that night, exhausted but happy, I realized that this Thanksgiving had been one of the best I'd ever had. The meal might not have been perfect, but the laughter, love, and memories we shared more than made up for it. Next year, I promised myself, I'd be a little more prepared. But even if I wasn't, I knew the most important thing was the people around me. After all, Thanksgiving wasn't about the food, it was about the people who shared it with you. I hosted Thanksgiving for my friends and somehow, everything went wrong. Part 5. The week after Thanksgiving, I couldn't stop thinking about the holiday. The turkey had been a disaster, the mashed potatoes a bit too mushy, and the green beans? Well, they were a casualty of my lack of attention. But despite all that, I found myself smiling every time I thought about it. The disaster had somehow brought us closer, and I was reminded of a valuable lesson: perfection wasn't the goal, togetherness was. In the days that followed, I received a text from Sarah that read, "By the way, I'm making a turkey this weekend. If you want to come over and watch me do it right, you're more than welcome." I laughed out loud, knowing that Sarah had a point. I had spent so much time stressing over making everything perfect that I almost missed the most important part of Thanksgiving, the chance to create memories with the people I cared about. We didn't need perfect food, perfect decorations, or flawless planning. What mattered was showing up for each other and being present in the moment. I realized then that Thanksgiving wasn't about impressing anyone with a gourmet meal, it was about being with the people you loved, laughing at the mistakes, and sharing the moments that made the day unique. I could already imagine the next holiday gathering, no more stressing over whether every dish was perfect or whether I had everything under control. The people who mattered wouldn't care about the mistakes, and I'd learned to embrace those imperfections. What I realized was that it was the love and the laughter shared around the table that made the evening meaningful. The next Thanksgiving, I found myself hosting again, but this time, I had learned to embrace the imperfections. The turkey wasn't the center of attention, nor were the mashed potatoes or even the pie. What mattered most was the laughter that filled the house, the way we all gathered together around the table, no matter how the food turned out. That year, I made sure to have extra pie on hand, just in case. But this time, I didn't worry about whether it would be perfect or not. It didn't have to be. It just had to be shared. As the evening came to a close, I looked around the room, at my friends and family, and realized that this Thanksgiving, like the one before it, would be one of my favorite memories. Not because of what went right, but because of the way we all came together. And as we said our goodbyes, I couldn't wait to do it all over again next year, mishaps and all.